Yeah, I'm not going to.
Okay, class, listen up. We're going to start this lesson with a very, very important test. Guys, listen, this is the most important test you're ever going to take. This is so important, I need to make sure that all of you are totally silent while we're taking this. We cannot share answers while we're taking this test, so we need to be quiet. We're going to practice now. Thank you. This is very important, so no, you can't ask the teachers any questions, you can't ask each other any questions. All you gotta do is one question. The only instruction is you gotta choose the shape on the test that would come next in the series. Make sense? Okay. When I pass it out, our voices are off right away, okay? We'll have about 2 minutes. And that is time that I totally timed. Okay, let's talk about that now. First, I just want to see a show of hands. Who chose answer A on the test? Quite a few. Who chose answer B? No? Okay. And who chose answer C? Okay. Now here's the thing. If you chose answer A, you followed these instructions and you did the example. That was the answer that you would have got if that's what you read and that's what you looked at. However, if you listened to my instruction was to choose the shape that would come next in the series. Before I passed out the test, that's what I asked you to do. So if you were listening to that and that's what you went off of, you would have chosen B. So no one chose B. I'm surprised that no one realized it was a trick. Why did you all choose A? Who wants to? You read the instructions, right? And the example is pretty clear what to choose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd say so. But no one chose B at all.
I mean, I did, and then I read the instructions. So I didn't.
So you did think about what you heard what I said first, and then okay.
I chose B.
So why do you think you preferred the written instructions over the verbal instructions?
Because just like a verbal contract is only worth what the paper that it's written on, you could have been like, I never said that, and then I would have gotten it wrong. Whereas this piece of paper is going to stick around.
Do you think the example really helped you figure that answer out?
Yeah.
That's because when we are teaching, working through those examples are going to be a lot more impactful than anything someone would just tell you. Any instruction that's just verbal. And that's what we're going to talk about here today in the worked examples principle. Okay, thanks.
Oh, I forgot to delete that big word that says citation where our citation was supposed to be. But according to the article that we were assigned, the worked example is like a problem formula with a final solution. So it's just like an example of how to like do your lesson or whatever. It's pretty simple. So it's a formula problem. Yeah, it's on there. I can't read.
A worked example is a problem, like problem solution. So you have a problem and then you read the instructions and then you have your solution based on what the instructions give you. So instructional tech students, we use this a lot in our classrooms, especially with some of the examples that our instructor has given us on his PowerPoints.
Okay. Okay, so this is a math example of a worked example. We have to click on this.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague.
This isn't it.
Hi, so in this video we are going to take 3 solved examples based on probability, and all of them are slightly tricky. The first problem statement over here says if a coin is tossed 3 times, find the probability that no 2 successive tosses show the same face. So if a coin is tossed 3 times, the tree diagram for these tosses will be something like this, right? So this is a tree diagram. These are the 8 possible outcomes of these 3 consecutive tosses. And if I write them in the set, the solution space will look something like this. And these will be all the possible outcomes when we toss a coin for 3 times.
Okay, so basically it's just showing you like how to do the problem and then an example of the problem, so that if they gave you like what is set up here about like a coin is tossed 3 times, well, you have this example, so you can go off of that and use it like if the coin was tossed 8 times or 20 times or whatever. So yeah, that's what it is. That's an example of it in math. An example of it in science. This is kind of confusing. So, okay, so identifying the isotope. So this is the question, like an isotope contains 16 protons and 18 neutrons, 16 electrons. What's the identity of the isotope? So to use a worked example, we give the periodic table, because it's something to look at, and then we'd say, well, 16 protons, so we look at sulfur has 16 protons, and so we'll bring it over here, okay? So then we say 32, because you know the number, and then it's a negative isotope with 2 extras because you add them up and stuff, you know, science. So that's a worked example because you're using like, so after they see this one, then you can say like, what's an example when there's 4 protons, and then they go over here and they do the whole thing over again. So it's just giving an example so that they can do it on their own later.
Yeah, so the same thing for like an English example. So like if we were diagramming sentences, so we have, they want you to circle the subject, underline the verb, and draw an arrow to the direct object. So if we have the example, Jane kicked a soccer ball. So then if you were given another sentence, like Jack ran up the hill, what would you circle? If I said Jack ran up the hill, what would you circle? Jack. And then you would underline the verb, and the direct object would be the hill. Good job. Yeah, so steps to creating a worked example. So again, you're given the identify the object and list the misconceptions with the objective. So if you write the lesson goal and then you introduce the principle, so that's the first step. And then the second, you use those examples to show how the principle is applied to the problem solving. And then the third step is give the problems to be worked on. So essentially you have your example and then you are given another example for you to do on your own.
Okay, so these are techniques. It helps so the brain isn't overwhelmed with loads of material. You can use techniques like segmenting, redundancy, multimedia, modality, and spatial and temporal continuity. Whatever.
That's it. Yep. That's all.
That's it. Do we do questions or?
Are there any questions?